Excellent. Welcome everybody to the inaugural meeting for the Washington Climate Assembly. Want to thank you all so much for joining us. I know we do have folks that are continuing to trickle in here, but I'm going to go ahead and get us started. I'll be introducing other members of the coordinating team who've been working alongside me since last October when we started planning the assembly, but I know that I can speak on behalf of our entire team to say how thrilled we all are to be here tonight, how excited we are to finally meet, virtually meet each of you, and how grateful we are to each and every one of you for representing your community in Washington State's first ever People's Assembly and the country's first ever Climate Assembly. My name is Gretchen Muller and I go by she, her pronouns, and I am the project manager for this important project and will be one of the facilitators. So you'll be seeing a lot of me over the next few weeks. We'll introduce our full team in just a moment, but I do want to go over a couple of housekeeping items before turning it over to Chairman Forsman for his keynote address. And I want to let everybody know as well that we will be recording this meeting and it is being live streamed as we speak on YouTube as well. And for folks that have been on Zoom before and feel comfortable sharing something in the chat, feel free to just take a moment and share how you're feeling about tonight's meeting. And we'd love to hear from folks on that. And I'll give you all just a moment to type something in and let additional folks that just joined us to get settled for the next couple of hours for our evening tonight. And we've got things coming in that people are excited to begin, ready to learn and listen, nervous, curious, looking forward to it, anticipation, really looking forward to this, stoked, I love the thumbs up. We've got a couple of tech issues, but in just a moment I will introduce Brent, who will be our fearless tech guru over the next few weeks here. Right on. Can't wait to see how it goes and a little anxious, but excited. Thank you all so much for sharing some of your initial thoughts as we get started today. Before we get started, I do want to read a land acknowledgement. We wish to acknowledge that the people of Washington State live and work on traditional lands of the indigenous people who have been here since time immemorial. There are 29 federally recognized tribes and 7 non-federally recognized tribes within the boundaries of Washington State. Tribes and tribal people bring thousands of years of traditional knowledge to our present moment. Tribes bring an important and vital voice to our current conversation, and we honor our tribal relations. So a few Zoom tips, recognizing that some of you have probably spent more hours on Zoom over the last few months than you ever care to remember as we move forward. But for some of you, Zoom, this is a new platform for you and we are here for you. We want to make sure that as we go along, that technology is not a barrier for everybody's active participation. And that's why we have Brent Edgar, who I'll introduce in just a moment, providing his contact information as our tech support. So at any moment, whether it's tonight or in our journey together on this assembly, please feel free to reach out to him for any tech-related issues that you may have. We do want to just take a moment. You'll notice on the screen here that we are asking for folks to sign in with your first name and your location. So we'll be also helping you do that, but we do want to give folks a chance to follow these prompts and click on participants, then hover over your name, and then click the more button and rename yourself with your first name and your location. So we won't be using last names for the assembly process in the interest of anonymity. So first name and location. And like I said, we'll be helping along the way too. So if you don't get it right away, no worries. A member of the coordinating team will be working to rename folks as well. So using your computer to connect with Zoom. So this will be our online remote platform for our journey in the assembly. So as we go along, even for folks that haven't used it before, you will be wizards at the end of this. using the hand raise function to request to speak to the group. We don't have any votes tonight, but the hand raise function is one that we'll really rely on throughout the course of our time together. We also will be using chat as well. And so the chat function, if you have something, a question that comes up, feel free at any time to put it in the chat. We'll be monitoring that throughout the course of the evening as well and throughout each of our meetings. Using a headset or taking the call from a quiet space to reduce background noise is also a great Zoom tip. And then keeping your phone and headset muted unless you're speaking to the group. As I mentioned, Brent is here for you. He has been helping some of you get started during his office hours last week and this week in terms of tech support. We'll be putting his contact information in the chat as well. So if anything, some tech thing will likely happen to each and every one of us on our online journey together. He's here for us. Please call him or send him a text, and he will help get things figured out. So on the screen, you'll see our agenda for the night. We do have quite a few things that we're looking to cover with you all. We're meeting from 6 to 8 p.m. tonight. We'll have a hard stop right at 8. And as you'll notice here on our agenda tonight, we're very fortunate to be joined by Chairman Forsman, the tribal chairman for the Suquamish tribe. And the chairman will be giving the keynote address for the Washington Climate Assembly in just a moment. This will be followed by assembly member introductions. And we'll then be walking through some of the nuts and bolts of the Washington Climate Assembly and your incredibly, incredibly important role as assembly members. During our 2 hours today, we've got 2 interactive activities, one on hearing different perspectives as one of the exciting elements of these people's assemblies, which the Washington Climate Assembly is that they intentionally bring together different perspectives in the same room. And in our case, it's a virtual room, but we're very excited to learn about and deliberate on complex issues and with varying different perspectives than all the various perspectives that you all bring to this. And we'll wrap up tonight's meeting with what's next and what you can expect from the learning sessions moving forward. So now we are going to move into the first agenda item. And I have the pleasure of introducing Chairman Forsman. Leonard Forsman has served as tribal chairman of the Suquamish tribe since 2005. And he is in his first term as president of the affiliated tribes of the Northwest Indians. Chairman Forsman also serves as a co-chair of the National Congress of American Indians Climate Change Task Force and has served on Governor Inslee's Southern Resident Killer Whale Task Force. He's also worked as a professional archaeologist and formerly served as the director of the Suquamish Museum. He was born and raised in Suquamish on the Port Madison Indian Reservation, where he continues to live with his family today. Thank you so much for being here tonight, Chairman Forsman. We're really honored to have you. And with that, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Gretchen, and thank you everybody for participating in this event. It's a great honor to be asked to be here to kick this off. And I have high hopes for a lot of great ideas and concepts and pathways that will be developed through this process to help us address climate change, this climate crisis. And want to talk a little bit about our duty and accountability as people of Washington and First People of Washington as well. And my name's Leonard Forsman, and my ancestral name is Gui, which means raven, and it was given to me in a canoe journey in 2009. And you can see an image here from our House of Awakened Culture in Suquamish with the canoes from many nations on the lawn in front of our home waters. So if we go to the next slide. So Suquamish means people of the clear salt water. Disukbub is clear salt water. So when you see a lot of the names in the Northwest, you'll see the kind of the Opsh or Mish as it's anglicized. Means the people of. So the people of is a suffix here. So we are the people of Disukbub, the clear salt water. And we're best known for being the home of Chief Seattle, who's buried here on the reservation. And he was born and raised in the Old Man House, Longhouse, which is over 4,000 years old and was a winter house of our people. And the Suquamish people were marine, had a marine adaptation. We didn't have a major river, so we had to travel far and wide for our food, which was primarily salmon. The first contact when Chief Seattle was young, about 6 years old, was with Captain George Vancouver of the British Navy, who came into Puget Sound Salish Sea in 1792. And he remembered him and his father paddling out to trade with them. So through his life, he saw a lot of changes up until the Treaty of Point Elliott in 1855, where he signed for our people. And this is where the reservation was established. And many of our treaty rights were guaranteed through our meetings with Governor Stevens. One of those major ones, of course, was to be able to hunt and fish in our usual and accustomed places, as we always had, and the treaty affirmed and promised to keep that right that existed for millennia before that. And ever since then, we've been working really hard to make sure that we continue to have access to our fish and shellfish. And this is a very important part of our way of life. And I think it's important to understand that that commitment was made as a trust responsibility between the United States and the Squamish tribe and other tribes that signed that treaty. And what's been very important is through legal actions such as the Bolt decision and the more recent decision on the Culverts case, we've proved that beyond a reasonable doubt in courts that these rights are the supreme law of the land as they are in the U.S. Constitution, and that we expect and will hold accountable the state of Washington and other governments to work to preserve our salmon runs and our uplands and everything else, so that we continue to have this resource at our disposal. We can go to the next slide to give a little image of past and present use of salmon and the importance of salmon to us for ceremonies, for subsistence, for trade or our economic use. We have a lot of commercial fishermen and crabbers and all that rely upon this to live off the water, as we have for generations. And of course, climate change is a big threat to this. And also sprawl and industrialization of our Salish Sea is a great threat to our being able to continue to harvest on these waters as we have for generations. Go to the next slide, please. So as we face climate change, we know all of the impacts that we're facing, more wildfires. We're very concerned about acidification of the waters and the warming of the waters, habitat destruction through construction in buffers and logging in buffers and mismanagement of the forests. We also are concerned about sea level rise, how that impacts our lands and our shorelines. We're also concerned about climate refugees, people who may come here when their areas get too extreme. We're also concerned over, very relevant today is the flooding that definitely damages our streams and rivers, and then warming oceans. And you may have heard a little bit about how the tribes on the coast have been having issues with the crab harvesting, the crab being recalled because of the warm water in the ocean is making it unsafe to eat. So we have to think about what our duty and responsibility is in addressing this. And this is why you all have been called together to find a solution. And I know that's a huge challenge, but I think that we can do this if we work together and think about our perspective and changing our perspective. You go to the next slide, please. So we talk a lot about 7 generations. Our ancestors, our tribal leaders from before talked about 7 generations. And so we like to think about what 7 generations back and 7 generations forward. So we try to bring on the our ancestral traditions about how our ancestors thought we should live our lives, and then how we think about how we live our lives and how those affect the next 7 generations. So we have to think about sustainability and investing in the long term. And that may mean we have to sacrifice. And I think that that's important. I think sacrificing for the future is good. I don't consider it a compromise. But we have to balance that with being able to provide for ourselves and our families too, because there's enough here to sustain us. But we just need to be able to leave something for the next generation. Get on the next slide. So we have a lot of oral traditions. This is how we kept our history. We didn't have a written language. Everything was oral. So we relied on our elders to remember all the stories and pass that down to the next generation. And we had many stories about how the world was created. And one of those primary characters in our stories was about the changer or the transformer, Dokuba, and the changer went around the world and our area and changed the world into what it is now today. And many of the things that he changed are food for the people now. And so the landscape, a lot of the major features on the landscape. And the one theme about all of that everything was human at that time. So all of our foods, the salmon, the deer, so many of the mountains and rocks and things that you see all were human, were changed into what they are today. And so when these, because of this, our people treat everything as it has a soul and a spirit. So we need to remember the connection between the tribal people and the landscape and how we're connected through these stories. And they included flood stories that told about how the earth was here, the geographical features were made here. And then also the game of Slahal and how the animals and the people had a great gambling contest. And whoever won the contest would manage the world. And the humans won. They barely won, but they beat the animals. And so the humans have been in charge since that big Slahal gambling game was done. And, maybe, I don't know if that was, what was important, but it is what it is. And the humans are in charge. So we have to take care of this earth. That was the commitment we made to the Creator. So we have to think about how climate change affects other species and how that, how we're going to manage those impacts. Move to the next slide. So Chief Seattle, who I mentioned before, gave a speech just before he signed a treaty. And part of that speech says that every part of the soil is sacred in the estimation of my people. Every hillside, every valley, every plain and grove has been hallowed by some or sad or happy event, and the day is long vanished. So the landscape, the waters, the trees, the valleys, everything's a witness to how we treat it. And it'll remember everything. So as we go through our work, we got to remember to think from that perspective. Get on the next slide. So we have to think about what we do. The tribes here, we consider ourselves sentinels to keep an eye on people and make sure they're treating things in a proper and respectful way. And we do a lot of work, and it's a lot of hard work that we do. And we do have some allies out there, but our treaty rights are very important to us, and we use them to help protect our treaty resources, which are all the things that we're fighting for: clean water, robust salmon runs, healthy beaches, clam beaches, things like that. They're very important to us for cultural, spiritual, and economic reasons. So we work a lot on habitat restoration, stopping pollution. Oftentimes we have to take local governments to court for sewer overflows. We work on shoreline protection and monitor permitting to make sure that we don't turn Puget Sound into a parking lot. We try to prevent the sale of sea in the Puget Sound from becoming industrialized. We reseed beaches to try to bring proper habitat and production to our beaches. and we invest in hatcheries to try to replace the salmon runs that have been lost through mismanagement over the decades. So as we continue to do these on a local level and on a regional level, we're really concerned about what climate change and the climate crisis, which is creating more acid in our waters, will do to our hard work. One quick story that I kind of start to end with is about the Puget Sound orcas, or the southern resident killer whales, and I was on the task force for that. And one of the things that was important that I learned on that task force, which was a good cross section, just as we have here today, of people, is the orcas need food, which they need more salmon, which means better habitats. We have to create more, better, and more robust fish runs. They need clean water. They need less toxins. And we need to reduce vessel traffic and industrialization of Sales City. So the orcas came along and they were asking for many of the same things that we as tribes have been asking for decades. So we have a partnership with them. And the Suquamish tribe especially has a spiritual connection with the southern resident killer whales, who helped escort some artifacts from Old Man House, that 4,000-year-old winter house. When those artifacts were brought back from the Burke Museum to the Suquamish Museum in an agreement we had with the state of Washington to return those artifacts to us, they acknowledged that connection that our old longhouse, our old people, our old ancestors had with the earth. They want that to return. So we want to continue to carry on those ancestral values. And I hope you'll pick those up today and think about that as we pit the climate versus the economy. And that doesn't have to happen. I think sometimes we have an either or. You're either for the climate or you're for the economy, and there's nothing in between. I believe this is a sustainable solution. But it just seems to me the dialogue has gotten so polarized that anybody who acknowledges climate change is saying we're going to lose jobs, and anybody who is all pro-economy is, again, is a climate change denier. That's not true. I don't think that's the case, but we need to find more common ground. And I think there is plenty of common ground that we can achieve as we move forward. So once again, just please consider your ancestors, future generations, and other species as we go through this, and what your role in that will be. And just like to end with a little message here on the last slide, please, about being an ancestor and how you can be the ancestor future generations will respect and hold in gratitude. And my last message would have please everybody during this process have an open mind, and also be bold and creative. So on behalf of the Suquamish tribe and the affiliated tribes of Northwest Indians, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to open up this great concept. And I really appreciate all the organizers for putting this together, and all the folks that have volunteered to be part of this process. Thank you. Aishka.
Thank you so much, Chairman Forsman. We couldn't thank you enough. Just really appreciate you being here tonight to help us kick off this really important and exciting opportunity that all the members of the Assembly are embarking upon. So thank you so much. And yes, appreciate it. Great. And with that, I will start walking us through the other agenda items. So we meeting the coordinating team. So who are some of the faces that you will be seeing in these little square boxes at every step of the way? And myself, Gretchen Muller, I just introduced myself earlier today. And these are all the faces of, and actually there are many other people that are not on the slide that have also helped with the organization of the Washington Climate Assembly, kind of behind the scenes. But on the call tonight are Mike Chang, Derek Hoshiko, Emily Wright, Carla Broyer, and myself. And all five of us will be serving as facilitators of the Assembly. We have Wendy Chung, who is our logistics coordinator and likely the person that you have been hearing from and potentially talking on the phone with, potentially getting text messages from. She's kind of all things related to logistics and a huge part of this. Then we also have Isa Manfredini and Kamal Patel, who are our information campaign leads. And with that, if folks, and I think we're still in the spotlight feature, but if we can do just if Mike, Derek, Emily, Carla, Wendy, if you can just quickly unmute yourselves and give folks a wave so people can see your faces.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Hi,
Good
everyone.
evening.
Hello.
Great to see you.
Hello, everyone.
Great. Okay. So who else is involved? We'll go ahead and go to the next slide. There are several other kind of elements to putting on a People's Assembly. We've got the design team. They're responsible for creating the rules and processes of the Washington Climate Assembly. So we are actually using a rule book, and that outlines the process for the entire assembly, from nuts to bolts to how we'll do voting at the end, to how we recruit speakers, to all things kind of related to the process piece of the assembly. And the Center for Climate Assemblies they're the design team for this. We also have a monitoring team. The monitoring team oversees the process of the Washington Climate Assembly to ensure that it follows the rule book and follows appropriate standards. And then there are observers, and observers are professionally or academically minded folks who deal with the subject of citizens' assemblies and show an interest in organizing a citizens' assembly. And we have a team of observers that they're listed on the website, and you all likely at different times will be getting some surveys from them that they'll be looking for you to fill out. It's a team from the University of Arkansas's Clinton School of Public Service, and they'll just be observing the assemblies. They won't be speaking, but we'll just be observing the process, and we'll be asking you to share your experience along the way. And with that, we are going to do just a really quick set of breakout rooms, and that's a feature on Zoom where you don't have to do anything. You just stay right where you are, virtually stay right where you are, but also don't have to touch anything on a screen either. We just wanted to give a moment, something that is really important, even though we are virtual and will remain virtual from start to finish for the Washington Climate Assembly, really wanting to do what we can to create a sense of community. And so at various times throughout the process, even in the learning sessions where you'll be hearing a lot of presentations, we will be doing several different things kind of related to breakouts, opportunities for you all to speak to each other and get to know one another as you all embark on this journey together. So we can go ahead and go to the next slide. Thank you, Wendy. So what does this look like? It will be time for all of you. Obviously, we've got about 90 people on the call today. So you won't be meeting everybody. You'll just be meeting a couple of other folks to start the process of building this online community. We'll be doing it through breakout groups. We'll have 3 people in each breakout room. And when. So in just a moment, the screen will tell you that you're being sent to a breakout room. And when you get there, you'll have about 2 to 3 minutes to introduce yourself. And we are going to do 1 to 2 rounds of this. And what we're asking for each of you all, if you don't want to share anything, that's okay too. But your name, your preferred pronoun, which is a set of pronouns that you identify with or would like to be called when your proper name isn't used. And then your location. And then in this first round too, if you can just share one thing you're excited about for this experience. And folks will have about 2 minutes to kind of share each of these things. You'll see on the screen here that we're in round 1. And Derek also just put a prompt in the chat for what we're going to be covering, what I just walked through as well. And yeah, just using this time to just get to know a couple of folks that are also assembly members. And so in just a moment, you'll be whisked away into that breakout room, and you'll be in there for 6 minutes before you come back to the main room. Excellent. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for testing out. I recognize, again, this technology for some is you're very used to it. For others, we're just getting started. So be patient with yourselves. And like I said, we're here to help you every step of the way as well. But we did want to kind of test that breakout room feature with you all. And we also just wanted to give you all a chance to talk with some of your other assembly members for the first time. So we are, yeah, and if anybody wants to share kind of a thought in the chat based on kind of your experience moving into the breakout rooms or your experience kind of talking with other assembly members, feel free to share that in the chat as well as I keep moving here. Okay, so, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Mike, to go over some of the nuts and bolts of the Climate Assembly.
Great. Thank you, Gretchen. So next slide, please, Wendy. So before we get started, I just wanted to introduce the main reason why we were all here today. And that's to deliberate on and provide solutions to the question we have up here on the screen. How can Washington State equitably design and implement climate mitigation strategies while strengthening communities disproportionately impacted by climate change across the state? If you want to go to the next slide, Wendy. So many of you may be wondering, and we've gotten this question a lot, is why Washington and why now? And so there's a lot of reasons why there is, both for the state and also for each of us individually. And so I'm going to be speaking at least for myself. I know over at least 2020, it was the second warmest year that we've ever seen on record. 2020 was also the worst wildfire season we've ever had in the state. And many of the warmest years and the worst wildfires we've seen have been over the past 5 years. We're also in this moment where currently we have, yesterday was the first day that the Washington State Legislature met for this current legislative session. And so because of that, there's really a lot of opportunity for new, innovative, and ambitious policies to affect change. Finally, we all come from various communities and are part of many different communities, both at the local level, the regional level, and a statewide community. And I think there's a drive and a passion from all of us to make sure that we're leaving the world a better place, both for ourselves and future generations as well. If you can go to the next slide. Great, thank you. So we also wanted to review many of the different actions that you as an assembly member are able to take. I'm going to go over these, but I'm recognizing that this is a lot to take in. So please, if you have any questions, feel free to tap it and type your question into the chat box. A lot of this information is also available in your welcome packet itself. So if you need to reference for further details, you can reference the welcome packet. And if you need help finding it, please feel free to contact any member of the coordinating team. So as assembly members, you have a lot of actions and rights that you're able to take. The first one is you can take part in all assembly meetings, as you know, because everyone is here today. We have many meetings planned over the course of January and February, and a lot of exciting things to learn and to discuss with each other. Additionally, you can request additional opinions or background information from speakers between the meetings. If you need additional information or context, questions to be answered, you have a right to ask for this, both from the coordinating team as well as from the experts and interested parties that will be presenting to you over the next few weeks. Similarly, you also have the right to ask questions to presenters. Starting this Saturday, we'll start our learning sessions where we'll have a lot of experts and interested parties presenting to you on various topics around our question we're asking you to deliberate and discuss on. And so within each of these sessions and meetings, you're able to ask the experts and interested parties follow-up questions so you can get clarity. And if you don't get it answered, or if you think of questions after the meeting has ended, you're entitled to write and email questions to the presenters themselves. Furthermore, you're able to submit proposals for recommendations. As you all know, we're all here to both learn and discuss solutions to address climate mitigation strategies across the state. Up until our voting session, which is on February 27th, you have the right to submit a recommendation proposal, which essentially is a set of strategies or actions that you or the Assembly will deliberate and vote on. These recommendations include the type of recommendation, what problem it's trying to solve, and why you're in favor of it. You can also submit a variety of motions, both to the coordinating team and to the monitoring team. These motions can include a variety of motions, including the need to verify the accuracy of information that's presented to you by presenters. It can be a motion to request for additional speakers and topics if you think something's missing or you want to learn more about something. You can also dismiss facilitators if you think facilitators have violated the rulebook. And you can also submit a motion to add additional meetings if you think additional meetings would help for either learning more or deliberating more with your peer Assembly members. You're also allowed to raise objections and comments to the monitoring team on a variety of issues, especially including a motion that the coordinating team or facilitators aren't abiding by the rulebook themselves. Finally, you're able and you have a right to vote on the final recommendations. And in light of all of that, because of the commitment, everyone will receive a stipend for their time and commitment to this process. If you can go to the next slide, Wendy. Great. So to provide kind of a timeline of both where we've gone and where we're coming from and where we're going together, you can see in this timeline that even though today's the first session, there's been several months of preparation to get to where we are today. So back in November, you were initially contacted to participate in what is now the Washington Climate Assembly. In December, we had the sortition, the live sortition process, which you can find the video on our YouTube channel. And the sortition process selected you as an Assembly member. Here in early January, we have the Inaugural Assembly meeting, and that's the meeting we are at today. Starting this Saturday and through February 7th, we'll have learning sessions. And so these sessions are the sessions where you're going to continue to hear from presenters on a variety of different topics and learn about the different aspects of climate mitigation in Washington State. So between February 9th through February 23rd, we have multiple meetings where you as an Assembly member will be able to discuss and deliberate on the types of solutions and design the solutions that you eventually want to vote on. And then at the end of February, on February 27th, is the last voting session. Following that, you can see in March, we'll be taking the results and the outcomes from this Assembly process, and we'll synthesize everything into a report and recommendations that we will publish. Next slide, please. So to give you a little bit more context about the learning sessions, which again start this Saturday, the general structure of these learning sessions is you'll hear from a variety of presenters. So on Tuesdays, you'll hear up to 6 presenters, and on Saturdays, you'll hear up to 10%. In terms of a schedule, you'll get emails 2 days before, and this email will contain the schedule or the lineup of speakers, the different types of presentation topics lined up for that day, and any potential materials that the presenters may provide. A lot of these materials could include various articles, reports, and websites that have additional resources for you to review on your own time. Additionally, thinking about all of this, your role is to attend and actively listen and ask questions if you have any clarifications that you need. Again, as a reminder, you can submit questions to the presenters the day of, or If you think of a question afterwards, you can submit questions to them after the fact. We'll also give you a chance to submit questions in advance of each meeting when you get the schedule and the list of topics, so we can anticipate some of the questions that we need the presenters to talk about. To confirm, all of the questions either raised before, during, or after each of these learning sessions will be answered by our presenters, whether during the learning session themselves or via email. Next slide. Oh, great. And to just give you a little appetizer in terms of what's upcoming for the learning sessions, we have 7 learning sessions planned for you all. So the very first learning session will have an introduction to climate change and climate mitigation. The second learning session will be about social issues and the social aspects of climate mitigation. The third learning session will be about the environment and the environmental considerations of climate mitigation. The fourth learning session will be about the economic aspects of climate mitigation. The fifth one will be about technology or some of the other technical aspects of climate mitigation. Learning session 6 will be about the political considerations of climate mitigation. And the very last learning session, we're going to bring it all together, show you examples of climate action throughout Washington State to hopefully inspire a lot of productive discussions. So I'll pause here and see if anyone has a question. If you do have a question, please type it into the chat box and we can begin answering some of this. Again, you're also entitled to email members@waclimateassembly.org, and we can follow up with you after this meeting today.
Great, thank you so much, Mike. We are going, before we move on to this slide, let's just go ahead and pause on the last slide around questions. And just gonna pause for just a moment, recognizing that was a lot of information, and there are a lot of topics that will be covered during the learning sessions, but they will be paced in a way that enables you to, or hopefully paced in a way that enables you to take time with what you're learning, what you're hearing, and also to make sure that that the speakers that we have are covering the topics that you want to hear about, and that we have an opportunity to share any and all questions that you all have for the speakers along the way as well. Reiterating, this is your assembly. We are the folks that are kind of structurally making it happen, but this truly is your assembly, and we'll keep reminding you all of that at every step of the way. So if there are things that we need to do to make changes, pivots, those types of things to help your experience, please don't hesitate to let us know. And we've got a few questions in the chat here. We have a question: what is the format of introducing a proposal? We will get into that during the learning sessions because there is kind of a formal process for that. So we'll share that with you when we embark on the learning sessions. The stipend, there's a $500 stipend for all assembly members and alternates in your participation of this that you get at the end. Recognizing, there's a great question from Jack in Woodinville. What if we miss or are unable to make a learning session? Is there a way to make it up? Absolutely. So all of the learning sessions will be recorded. They will all be posted to our website, the WashingtonClimateAssembly.org, and you can watch them at any time after they've taken place. Slides available to review online. We will make the presentations of the various different presenters available as we get them as well. We don't have them yet, but we will make them available as we get them. And let's see here. Excellent. And as we mentioned, if any questions at any time come up about the process, about your experience, you have some feedback for us, please don't hesitate to let us know. And with that, we can go ahead and move on to the next slide, please. Great.
Great. And just want to encourage folks to continue adding questions, and you can see members of the coordinating team are just also answering questions. And again, as a reminder, you can submit questions via email and we'll respond to you and make sure all of your questions are answered. So we're now going to go into our next activity together. And if you want to go to the next slide, Wendy. So during the assembly, you'll hear perspectives that are different than your own. You may agree with them or you may not, and you may feel a strong reaction to what you hear. But in order to have an effective and collaborative and democratic process, it's important we're all able to participate in the conversation without being reactionary. The assembly itself purposely represents a diverse perspectives and opinions across Washington state. And you, the assembly members, are representative of what the state makes up. That includes gender, income level, age, education, geography, and also your opinions on climate change. So essentially, this assembly is a mini version of Washington state. And because of that, we likely won't share the exact same opinions or have the same questions as every assembly member, and that's okay. But what it will take from each of us is active listening and patience, mindfulness, and other skills to empathize with people with different opinions than our own. Knowing this about yourself and each other will be incredibly important in terms of making the assembly successful. So in this activity that we're going to do together, we will show 5 statements on the screen, one at a time. And so we're going to be doing this all together. And so when you see each statement, take a moment to check in with yourself. You can close your eyes if you need to, if that makes you a little bit more attuned. And we want to ask you and encourage you to notice how you're feeling in reaction to each of these statements. Are you feeling happy or sad, excited, angry, or frustrated? And so keeping that in mind, let's take the next 15 seconds to just get in a comfortable position, whether that's sitting down, whether you want to stand up, whether you want to close your eyes. So I'll pause here for about 15 seconds for us to get into a comfortable position. Great. So I'm going to go to the first slide now. And the very first statement we have is strawberry ice cream is better than vanilla. And so for each of these slides, I'm going to pause for about 10 to 15 seconds. And again, just asking you to check in with yourself, seeing how you're reacting, and practicing some mindfulness and making sure that we acknowledge how we're reacting and that we can accept other opinions and perspectives apart from our own. All right, so the next statement we have is there are other living beings in the universe. So again, thinking, do I agree with this statement? Do I disagree? How does that make me feel? And how am I handling it? So in the next statement that I'm going to share, It is important that we all look out for each other so nobody struggles on their own. Great. So the next slide says, we can't all get what we need. And thanks to those for sharing your reactions in the chat. And I think that's a good, if you have that open, it's good to, again, see the various different perspectives that we have in the room or in this virtual room. And just sit with, what if a perspective or an opinion is different from my own? How am I feeling? And how am I addressing it? So this one is, we can't all get what we need. Great. And the last thing is, the last statement I'm going to say is, jobs should be our top priority. Great. All right. Well, thanks everyone for working through this activity with us today. I think it's, again, important. Like I said in the beginning, is we all represent different perspectives and opinions and different walks of life. And so acknowledging that there's a lot of diversity in how we approach issues, how we approach how we work and how we communicate, that will all be important to know that about ourselves and harness some of these tools. So I'm going to transition over to Gretchen, who's going to walk us through our next activity together.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mike. And as Mike mentioned, in terms of this assembly and all of you who have gathered here and will be taking this journey with us and are the Washington Climate Assembly, each of you make up the Washington Climate Assembly, that you all bring varied and diverse perspectives. You all share some perspectives with your colleagues on this journey, and there are going to be times when you don't, and that is one of the most amazing things about this, right? And I think very intentional as well. So having you all with us and sharing your perspectives along the way is a critical piece of the success of this, and then getting to a set of recommendations that really move forward for Washington State as well. So our next activity that we're going to be doing with you all is your vision for Washington State. And we have a few prompting questions. We are also going to go ahead and do breakout rooms for this as well, recognizing that we've got 90 plus folks and really wanting to give you all a chance and to kind of build this community, to start talking to one another, and to really kind of start sharing what you're able to share tonight and beyond. So we will be doing breakouts in just a moment, and we're going to be having 5 breakout rooms. There'll be approximately 20 to 25 people per breakout room. There will be a facilitator in each of the rooms who will ask for volunteers that want to share about your preferred future. So we'll have time for just a handful of folks to share, but we'll encourage each of you to take a moment and to write down your responses to a set of questions. And I'm going to go ahead and read this set of questions. And if you do have a paper and pen next to you, you can kind of start jotting down some of your initial thoughts. If you don't have a paper and pen next to you, no worries at all. We just start thinking about it. And if there's something that you want to share in the breakout rooms, we would love to hear it. And so this kind of main question that we're just asking you to think about tonight is, what preferred future do you envision 50 years from now? And always thinking with any process, it's really important to ground each of ourselves in kind of our vision for what we want something to look like, and then figuring out the steps to getting there. So we really wanted to do this visioning exercise with you all in this inaugural meeting, just to start thinking about your vision for Washington State. You all are Washingtonians representing diverse perspectives, diverse geographies, kind of across the board differences, and also a lot of similarities as well. And one of the things that we'll be doing here is we're asking this question about a shared vision, and then we will be asking this question at a few different times throughout the assembly to see if anything shifts for you as well. So this is kind of the main question, and then we've got a subset of questions that the facilitators will be walking through with you all. What is your vision? What does this look like to you? What does it feel like? What does it sound like? What does your home look like? What does your neighborhood look like, and your workplace? And so thinking about all of those things, I'm going to pause for just a couple moments here as you sort of ground yourself and sort of think to yourself, what does this mean to me? What is the vision I have for this state 50 years from now? And in just a moment, we will go ahead and do the breakout rooms. And as I mentioned, there'll be a facilitator in each one, and we'll be asking folks to share what they're able to share and what they feel ready to share as well. So Derek, let us know when we're ready for that.
Great.
And
just in terms of a point of process, how much time would you like for us to be in the breakout rooms?
yeah, we're going to be in the breakout rooms for approximately 20 minutes.
All righty. And so what we have, folks, is Emily's room is room number 1. I'll be in room number 2. Mike will be facilitating room 3. Gretchen will be room 4. And Carla will be running room 5. So when you're ready, I've got everything ready.
Great. And Derek, if we can go ahead and just share Brent's information one more time in the chat. If you are having any issues with your technology, or you're having any issues making your way to the breakout room, please be sure to let him know, and he's here to help you. And we do want each of you to make your way into these breakout rooms so we can talk to each and every one of you in a little bit smaller of a group, since we do have such a great big group tonight. And with that, I will turn it back over to Derek, who will put us into our breakout rooms.
All right, here we go.
I am muted. Hello, everybody. Excellent. Well, I know in my group, really inspiring to hear from everybody. Everybody was able to share something related to what they want to see in 50 years for our state, and really just what does it look like? How does it feel to you? What does it sound like? What does your home look like? Your neighborhood, your workplace? And because we all were in breakout rooms, and we also have folks that are following along in live stream. People didn't have a chance to hear all the great conversations that were happening in each of the breakout rooms. And so I am going to turn it over to Derek for just a moment, and he's going to introduce an activity that we're going to do in chat. And called a waterfall chat. And so if folks can just take a moment to locate your chat box. If you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see the mute button, stop video, participants, and then chat. And if you just double click on that chat box, you will start to see what Derek is going to explain to you, and then what we'll be looking for you all to participate in just a moment. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Derek, to just give a quick walkthrough of the waterfall chat activity.
Absolutely. So the most important thing is to not hit the enter key, but if you would, please type your answer to the question, what preferred future do you envision 50 years from now? I'm going to give us a good 20 seconds, 25 seconds to give you a chance to type, to reflect what came up for you in the breakout room. And importantly, it might not even be your original idea, but maybe something someone else said got you thinking about what do you envision 50 years from now. So we're gonna type your answer into the chat, but don't hit enter yet. In just about 15 seconds, we'll do a countdown of the 3, 2, 1 and go. And anything that you can do to make it as specific as possible, the better. What does it taste like, sound like, feel like? So again, I'll do a countdown, 3, 2, 1. And when I say go is when you hit the enter key, and it's going to be this amazing experience to see everyone type in at the same time. So here we go. Hit enter when I say go. 3, 2, 1, go. All right, this is amazing. Look at all these amazing responses. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, keep it coming. This is so amazing. All right, cleaner energy, no homelessness. I'm seeing some of the things that apply to Washington State, but also applying to the world. Telecommuting, including everyone. A future where people will listen to viewpoints without being judged. Peace. Better resources, better opportunities. Grandkids can breathe. Any others that people are still chatting in, feel free to go ahead and continue doing that, but I'm going to hand it back to Gretchen. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Derek. And for those of you that haven't had a chance to type something in and want to share something verbally as well, please feel free to put your hand up and we will call on you, and you can also share verbally what your preferred future is. What do you want Washington State to look like in 50 years? Your preferred future in 50 years from now. People helping people. I'm just going to keep reading a few of these, and if my team can let me know if there are other folks that are raising their hand and want to share verbally, if you can let me know. But in the meantime, I'll just be reading off some of these really amazing responses. The idea of replacing every tree that is removed by new development. As I mentioned, better future for our seniors than what is available now.
Gretchen, we have Travis from Snohomish with his hand up.
Great. Travis, what would you like to share?
Hey, so one thing that came up a couple different times in our group was about everyone being able to have a seat at the table and a much more inclusive environment where everyone's needs are met, including access to food, shelter, those kinds of things. So.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing, Travis. Other folks that want to verbally share?
Jack in Woodinville.
Jack, I think you might be muted.
Oh, hi, sorry. One thing that came up in the breakout room I was in was someone recommended switching everyone to electric cars and getting more cars off the road. And that reminded me of a point I've considered in the past, which is in order to switch to electric cars, we need the energy to power that. So finding ways to switch our energy to cleaner versions of it.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jack. I really appreciate you sharing with us tonight. Anybody else that wants to share? We do have a few others, many awesome thoughts in the chat from Pedro from Birch Bay, Washington. With the increasing rainfall, it might be possible to increase the agricultural output. State of Washington, there would be a surge in population due to people moving here from the south, fleeing climate stress. From Teresa in Tacoma, Whole Foods, grown locally, harvesting natural foods for medicine. From Angela in Vancouver, no labels, people are allowed to be the human they were created to be without judgment. From Lendwell, from Camino Island, sustainability. From Kathy in Auburn, better future for our seniors. I read that before. Lots of really fantastic ideas. Keep them coming as you think of them and as we move to the next agenda item. And Yeah, thank you all so much for sharing. And as we mentioned, kind of when we started this activity, we will revisit this at a couple of key times throughout the assembly process, and just taking note for yourself if anything shifts at these various different check-ins throughout the course of the assembly. So thank you all for being willing to share with us. And just think it's a really great place to start with a vision. Where do we want to be headed? And what do we want that to look like? How do we want that to feel? What does it sound like? Again, yes.
This is Ron. I live in Central Washington by Moses Lake. One thing that I don't know that everybody has considered, because not everybody has been here all their lives, I don't suppose, is that all the dams on the Columbia River, there's 11 of them total. They produce a tremendous amount of power. That's why all these data centers are being built along the river. As we've talked about in our breakout group, there's wind power that's being harnessed now, et cetera. I'd like to see more solar power being made available by our government. I've had the opportunity to spend a couple of partial winters in Arizona, and I took a job as a solar salesman, so I learned a lot about solar while I was down there. And even though REC is here in Moses Lake, building solar panels, I think is what they do, I still don't see any really cheap ones or government subsidized ones here, which would allow us to stand, each of our homes to stand almost individually. The only thing that they didn't run, you can't run 220, anything that's powered by 220, like heaters, furnaces, and so on. But 110, everything that's 110 can be run from solar. You can change it basically. But I try to look at that type of thing as a ship or an RV. They're an individual unit with their individual power, right? I mean, they operate that way. Some of the heat and stoves and that sort of thing have to be run by gas, propane, but everything else can be run by the solar panels. If we could stand individually as homes, then that power that everybody seems to be concerned with, which I'm not, unless the dams get removed for whatever reason, that we have plenty of power here in Washington State, but not every state does. So Washington State seems to be in a prime location and have the ability to be the example for the rest of the nation if we choose to be. And I see that as why this opportunity to get together and think as one collectively can be so powerful, because we can then be the example for the nation if we come up with ideas and share our knowledge and can harness it. I don't know who gets this information. I guess it goes to our legislators later, right? Is that how that works?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, there's a set of recommendations that you all vote on, and the ones that rank the highest are then shared with decision makers.
Great. Well, that'll be awesome. I am really anxious to see how this all turns out. But if we can somehow learn, I'm not very good with the technology, but I do have some ideas that possibly will be helpful, and I hope they will, and heard. And I'm very anxious to hear other people's insights, because as we share those and ponder them in between meetings, I think we can come up with something terrific. So I look forward to doing this over the course of the next month or so.
Excellent.
Thank you. You bet. Bye now.
Great. Excellent. So moving into our almost final last agenda item for the night, did want to just share a kind of global perspective on people's assemblies. People's assemblies have been convening around the world as a global strategy for tackling the most complicated issues. And so even though you all are embarking on kind of the Washington State's first ever People's Assembly, the United States' first ever Climate Assembly, we are not alone. And we can go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So there have been a couple of assemblies, People's Assemblies, that have happened just this year in the United States, both on COVID. So there was one in Oregon that concluded in September. There was another one in Minnesota that concluded in November. Europe has used these for many, many years, convening groups of people just like yourselves to tackle things like Brexit. There was the Climate Assembly in the UK. Scotland's Climate Assembly is actually happening as we speak. So ours is happening simultaneously as one is happening in Scotland, and France, in Ireland. So you all are not alone. We have great resources that we're pulling from, and just really wanting to share that assemblies have been used worldwide to help shape the work of governments. And with polarization continuing to increase across a range of issues, assemblies are more important than ever. So your assembly, and this truly is your assembly, will serve as an example of how people from all walks of life, representing a range of beliefs and viewpoints, can roll up your sleeves and find common ground on one of the century's defining challenges. And with that, we just really want to thank you. We are so grateful for the time you will be spending with us. And we do want to go over just a couple of next steps before we close for the night. Recognizing that we've got our first learning meeting. We're calling them sessions here on the website. We call them learning meetings. They're the same thing. We have our very first learning session this Saturday on January 16th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And as Mike mentioned earlier this evening, that each of the Saturday sessions will run for the same from that 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. time slot. Each of the Tuesday sessions will run for the same amount of time as did tonight, and that is from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And moving into the learning sessions is a really exciting time too. We have a lot of great speakers that are really excited to be part of this, excited to meet you all, excited to share their information with you. And as Mike also mentioned, this is an opportunity for you to ask questions of them. And there will be plenty of time for questions during each of the learning sessions, and we will get every question answered. Even if we don't have time, if we run out of time in the learning session, we will be in touch with each of the presenters, get a response to your question, and get that response to you. And in advance of the learning sessions, recognizing we're just getting started tonight, but as things become a little bit more regular for these meetings, and you really get in there and are familiar with the process, then any questions you have in advance, we'll be soliciting questions in advance once you know what the topics are. As Mike mentioned, we walk through all the topics, but just a couple of days before each of the learning sessions, we'll have a lot more information to share with you about what's coming. And email at us at any time. So the members at climateassembly.org is your email. And so, yeah, just email us at any time. And we do have email addresses for each and every one of you. Those were provided to us by Strategic Research Associates, who is our team member who helped find you all. And so if that email that you provided to Strategic Research Associates is not the best email to use, then please let us know what email we should be communicating with you on. We'll be communicating both via text and via email, so you'll be getting reminders in advance of each of the meetings. We'll also be sharing pertinent information about each of the upcoming learning sessions via email as well. And with that, I do just want to take a moment. If there are any questions related to the upcoming learning session or what's next, and you'll notice here on the slide as well that there are 4 different pieces of this assembly process. We're about to embark on the learning phase of it. We'll have a few weeks of learning sessions or learning meetings. Then we'll move into the deliberation phase of the process, where you all will be rolling up your sleeves, talking about what you learned, sharing your perspectives and your opinions with each of the other assembly members. And then in the decision phase is when you all will actually be voting on a set of recommendations that then go into a report that will be shared with decision makers throughout the state. So we're on our very first step. Tonight was a huge step in this process of just getting to meet you all, of getting to hear some of the wisdom of Chairman Forsman initially, getting a couple of interactive activities where you got to see on your screen some different statements, and just listening to yourself. What did I think? What did my body tell me when I saw that on the screen? Do I agree with that? Do I not agree with that? Because there will be times when you're in agreement with the other assembly members, and there will be times when you're not. And that truly is one of the exciting elements of this. And we just want to thank you all so much for your time and look forward to seeing you on Saturday. But before we close, I will just do a quick scan to see if there are any hand raises, any questions that folks may have, or any questions in the chat. Great. And we did get a couple of great suggestions too in terms of captioning and things like that. So from the tech side, if there are things that would make this, the technology piece of this, since that will be our platform, better for you, then please let us know. We're here for you. Brent is here for you. And we definitely want to make the online platform work as best for you as possible. So thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you on Saturday. Have a really wonderful night, and here we go. So thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to see you, Derek.
Thank you.
Mahalo.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Mahalo.
Mahalo.
Say good night, Dick.
Good night, everyone.
Night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Gracias, buenas noches.
Thanks and good night.
Good night.
Sleep tight.
Good night.
See you all again.
Stop video. Going on till 8.
Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
I'm trying to figure out how to turn it off.
Yeah. I think there's a stop video right by the mute button.